looks like it's working. Okay, good. They fixed it since this morning. All right, so I'm going to record you guys for a change instead of fourth period, and then I will upload this because just seeing an answer key doesn't really do you guys any good. Me talking through it and explaining it, that's what does y'all good. If you've got questions, maybe the same questions that other people, for whatever reason, couldn't make a Google Meet, may have had. So I will upload you guys instead. We are reviewing. Okay, your test is going to be tomorrow, the unit test. Before I get into it, this is what should be on your notebook. Oh, it's frozen. I apologize. This is what should be in your notebook. There's 14 different sections. I'm only looking for this 6 weeks. If I go here, okay, there's the link for the list. This is a recording that I took from first 6 weeks in our space. I know it's the wrong class and I know it's the wrong 6 weeks, but how to do a digital submission is exactly the same thing. The reason why I'm telling you this now is because we're drastically running out of time. My Earthspace actually had today to work on their digital submissions, and most of them have done them. We just don't have enough time. Your turn-in link, when you put all of your stuff in your drive, so it might look a hot mess, and then you're gonna drag things where they go. I need to put this here in resources. If you have a mouse, it's faster. But I want just those 14 in with your notes. These are my skeletons, y'all. I don't want empty skeletons. I want them actually written out as notes. Now, I know most of you guys take paper. You have to give me a digital submission. Okay, so if you have a scanner, lovely, you can scan them. If you don't, take a picture with your phone, send it to yourself. It'll do it as a PDF, and then put it in the drive. And then once you have these 14 that's in there, whether they be these actually filled out or you take a picture, I don't care. The way that you get a link, you don't hit the share button, you actually get the link. You need to take it off of restricted. You guys put it on Azel. I always say anybody with a link, you guys don't have that option. You're going to copy it. And then when you go back, where's my Canvas button? I change this to student view. I'm not quite sure what the heck that noise was. Oh, and Nate wants to come in. Okay. Yeah, if you guys are joining from something other than your Chromebook, I have to allow you in. Okay, so what you guys see, this turn-in link, when you go to submit, all you do is you paste that link that you copied and you submit it to me. And then I can see it in Canvas. But if you don't take it off of restricted, I can't open it. So when are your notebooks due? Your notebooks, really, I'd love to have Wednesday. I know that's cutting it close. I want to be able to at least make sure that I can open your assignment. Now, really, in class Thursday, okay, you guys have 30 minutes Wednesday, which I know isn't a lot of time, but your assessment shouldn't take you that long. So you should be able to get these things submitted to me before you leave. Y'all, I'm not letting you turn in your notebooks all break long. It closes the 17th at 11:59. Like, I'm not grading notebooks all week long. I have to build stuff and have this class that I've never taught before, and I have new resources. So it's going to eating up my entire break. So if we need to, you can go here, and you can rewatch that video on how to do a digital submission. If you have questions, either tomorrow or the next day, I should be able to answer it. So going back to the review, that's not the review. That's not the review. Where's the review? I gotta make a copy. Let's make a copy. All right, I'm gonna blow this up, and I'm gonna directly type on here. I actually can draw on this. It's not like the best. Let's see, let me make my screen bigger. Oh, I can make it a little bit bigger here. Center it. And then I will double check online. Once again, if you're just now showing up, we're about to do this review together. Yes, this should say 2020, not 2019. Sorry, there's a typo there. All right, so we're gonna match. We've got metal, atom, ion, anion, cation, ionic compound, and molecular compound. So let's start with the ion stuff first. You've got An ion in general, which has differing numbers of one of the specific subatomic particles, and of that, you have a specific type of ion that's negatively charged, and the other type of ion, which is positively charged. Of the two types, the anion and the cation, which one's positive? The cation, go. It has a positive symbol in its name. It's the letter T. This is going to be letter B. Okay, and then, so that means that the anion has to be the negatively charged one, which will be letter C. Let me put my caps lock on here. Ions in general, it's the same number of protons, it's the same number of electrons, it's different numbers of what? What's the part I didn't say? It can't be the protons, it's not the neutrons, it's the electrons. So that's going to be any atom or group of atoms that have a charge. Now, we don't know if they're positive or negative, we just know that they've either gained or lost electrons in order to get that way. Let's go back up. Let's do atom next. What is an atom of the ones that are left? What is it? The smallest part of an element?
And then she was like,
That's the A.
Miss Ritchie,
Yes.
are we doing notes? I'm sorry I'm late.
We are starting up the review. So what you need to do is, let me get off of this. You need to go into Canvas where the review is and make a copy of it because we just started doing it together.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
That's okay. Let me see if anybody else came on. Okay, let me mark Nate. That's why I always sort of drag my feet for those of you that log in a little late. Okay, let me go back to this. Okay. Let's see. So a metal then, let me make this bigger. Where do we find metals? The left side of the staircase, hydrogen does not count, so that's going to be E. And then an ionic compound. We've got two types of compounds we've talked about. There's ionic, and then there's either molecular or covalent. Those are interchangeable with each other. What makes up a ionic compounds? Cations and anions. Okay, that's a metal and a non-metal. Normally, ammonia is the exception. So that means that the one that's left over, these are the things that are made up of nothing but non-metals. Most of you like the naming with the molecular way better than the ionic because you don't have to remember all those extra rules. All right. We're going to identify if they are ionic or covalent. The only thing that you need to look at is the first element, and you got to figure out if it's a metal. If it's a metal, it's ionic. If it's a non-metal, then this thing is covalent. Magnesium is in group 2. It's a metal. What type of a compound is magnesium chloride? Which one? Ionic. Hard for me to hear over this thing, but I don't want to freeze. SiO2, that starts with silicon. Silicon is a non-metal, so what would that one be? Molecular. Like I said, if I say covalent, it's the same thing. So this is silicon dioxide. Put space over here. Get that off there. Okay. K2SO4. This is a potassium and a sulfate ion. Oh, I just told you the answer. Potassium is a metal, so this is an ionic compound. It has a polyatomic ion on it. Unless it starts with the letter H, it's going to be ionic. Technically, if it's an H and then a polyatomic, it's an acid, and we'll get to those after Christmas, like down the road. Dinitrogen tetrabromide. If you see a prefix anywhere, is it ionic or is it covalent molecular? Which one? It's molecular. If you don't see a prefix at all, at least from what I have taught you so far, because we've not done acids yet, that is ionic. This one's also ionic. Now the difference between this one and this one is the top one. This has the polyatomic ion phosphate in it, PO4 with a -3. And then this one comes from chlorine, which is just Cl-1. You guys do have one more polyatomic ion quiz. It's groups 5 and 6. I don't know if we're going to do that Wednesday or Thursday, but they don't take very long. And I haven't even seen your assessment yet, but they're normally like 10, 12 questions. They're normally pretty short. Simple naming to formulas, some ionic and some molecular. So we have to figure out, I'm going to get rid of this. We're going to have to figure out what type it is first. And then that's going to identify its, is that one going to move over with it? Good. If it's going to use prefixes only, is it going to have to look up charges? I'm trying to get rid of these lines because they drive me nuts. Okay. Diselenium decasulfide. If you see a prefix, do you need to look up a charge? No, because the prefix tells you how many it has. So I'm going to look up selenium first, which is over on the right-hand side. Its formula, or its abbreviation is SE. But how many, if it says di, how many does it have? 2. And then I know sulfide comes from sulfur. Let me make this a subscript. Remember, you do control and the comma does a subscript. And deca means how many? 10. Whoops, I pushed the wrong button. And then to get it off subscript, just do the control comma again. Strontium sulfide, there are no prefixes. I am going to have to look up the charges. I know strontium is in group 2, so it's +2. I'll make this a superscript. Sulfide comes from sulfur, which is a -2. I'm going to make that a superscript. Do those two numbers already add up to 0? Yeah, so do you need to write a subscript if they already add up to 0? So what would the formula be? SRS. I'm trying to get it to not behaving. There we go. There we go. SRS. Because once again, if it's +1 -1, +2 -2, or +3 -3, you don't need to crisscross. They already add the 0. That's the whole point. They want to be neutral. They don't want to be charged. Ions are charged. Compounds are neutral. Okay, tetranitrogen. So I don't need charge just because I have a prefix. How many is tetra? Tri is 3. Tetra is 4. And then I know this is going to be fluorine. Let me make this a subscript. And then how nana is how many? 9. Whoops, not 0. Over here. Okay, ammonium is the only positive polyatomic ion. It is NH4 with a +1 charge. Yes, I do write +1. I don't just write plus. Some teachers teach it differently. That's how I was taught. So that's its charge. And then chlorate is also a polyatomic ion, which is capital C, lowercase l, capital O, 3, and it carries a -1 charge. That 3 is part of chlorate. You cannot change for right now until I teach you how to do balanced equations. You don't change those subscripts. That is chlorate. But do they already add up to 0? +1 -1. Does it add to 0? Yes. No, I don't think that is on there. That's why we've had you guys doing these quizzes, start memorizing them. I can't remember how many of them are on there. I need to go back and look. Like I said, I haven't seen the 6 weeks assessment. I have seen this test. Okay, so let me get this off of here. Now, if they already add to 0, you do not change anything. You do not take off that 4. You do not take off that 3. Make this go over to the side. You do not need parentheses unless there's more than 1. And because there's 1 of each, there are no parentheses in this. Back to an easy one. Hexacarbon. Hexa means how many? Pentas 5. Hexa 6. Hydride is hydrogen. Hepta means 7. The ones with the prefixes are way easier. It's way easier. Get rid of that line. And like I said, I am, if you came in late, if I haven't seen you, I will be posting today's into Canvas. If you need to go back and like listen to how I'm explaining how to do this because you were writing and you need to do them separately to be able to learn, it will be posted as soon as I can get it up into Canvas today. Sodium, we have no prefixes, we need charges. Sodium is a group 1 metal. Carbonate is a polyatomic ion. Now these do not add to 0. So I'm going to crisscross them. Whoops, it's supposed to be a charge. We are going to crisscross them. Now, if I make my screen a little bit smaller. Oh, what happens? Oh, never mind, I don't have to. I want my smart ink. I learned I can do something. Let's do it in red. Now let me make this bigger again. So this 2 should go here. I know it looks like a 2-year-old wrote it because I'm using my mouse and I can't do this well with mouse with a computer mouse. That means I need one of those. Okay, we don't write a 1 though. So if I go back, whoops. That's great. That's where it came from. No, I don't want you to do that. I want you to go. It's going to keep trying to move these arrows. Anyways, that's where I got them from. Let me get rid of them because they're just going to keep messing up my stuff. Okay, so it's going to be 2 sodiums for every 1 carbonate. I do not need parentheses because there's only 1 carbonate. You only need parentheses if you have more than 1 of a polyatomic ion. Make this bigger again. This is something that I've noticed people doing wrong. A Roman numeral does not tell you that there are 3 irons. It tells you that iron's charge is +3. And I saw people doing that. So when I pass back your work, if that's what you were doing wrong, that's a common mistake. But this Roman numeral 3 tells you that this particular iron has a +3 charge. The oxygen's always -2. They're going to crisscross. So your 3, this 3 is going to go to the oxygen, and this 2 is going to go to the iron, so that they do add up to 0. And so this will be Fe2O3. Once again, if you haven't quite caught on to it, control comma makes a subscript, and control period makes a superscript. Silver. Silver is not a group 1 or 2 metal, but it does not need a Roman numeral because silver, which is Ag, is always +1, always. Nitrite is a polyatomic ion, which is NO. Nitrate is NO3, nitrite is NO2. It carries a -1 charge. These happen to already add up to 0. So I do not need to crisscross anything. I just need to rewrite it. And do not leave off that 2 for nitrate. Or, I'm sorry, not nitrate, nitrite. Otherwise, it's not nitrite. It's a nitrogen and an oxygen. That 2 is part of that nitrite ion. I don't know if I can go down 1. Oh, poop. Or I'll do it next to it because it's gonna run out of room. Copper 2 chromate, that copper is +2. That chromate is CrO4 -2. That's one of the few that I do not, most of them I have memorized because I've used them for so many years, but the chromate and the dichromate, I get mixed up sometimes. They already add up to 0, so the formula is just CuCrO4, and that's it. Make this a subscript. Trisilicon dioxide, you do not need charges. Silicon is Si. How many is tri? 3. Oxygen, and how many is di? 2. I am not worried about y'all with the molecular ones. I am worried about the ionic ones just because there's so much more that you need to remember with an ionic. They name the following. These are all ionic compounds. That means if you have a metal that is not in group 1 or group 2, or is not aluminum, cadmium, zinc, or silver, it needs a Roman numeral. But this is aluminum. Aluminum does not need a Roman numeral, so we're just going to list the metal. And then we have this NO3. There's 3 of them. Now there's 2 nitrogen-oxygen compounds. There's nitrite, which has 2 oxygens, and there's nitrate, which has 3 oxygens. This is aluminum nitrate. Y'all do not change the ending of a polyatomic ion until we get to acids. And then you have to remember all those rules. Those 8s and 8s, they don't change their ending. They don't. LiO2, lithium is a group 1. Yes, group 1 metal, but does not need a Roman numeral. What does oxygen become? Becomes oxide. All of the molecular ones end in "ide." If you only have 2 capital letters, like this one does, the lithium and the oxygen, it's going to end in "ide." If there's more than 1, 2, 3, this one has 4 capital letters, it's going to either be an "ite" or an "ate." Magnesium is a group 2. I don't change it. There's no Roman numeral. C2H3O2 is called acetate. If there's any questions where I'm getting these from, feel free to ask, because you have to be able to do this on your own tomorrow. NH4, that is ammonium. And then the F is fluorine, but the ene changes to what? What does fluorine become? There's no such thing as a fluorate. What are the last 3 letters? If it's "ide." If it ends with an element, if this thing is an element, it's going to be "ide." If the thing in the back is a polyatomic ion, it is normally going to be "ate" or "ite." This one's going to end in "ide" because there's only 2 things. Uh-oh. Why is that at font 7? It should be at font 12. All right. So this is 10. I am going to need a Roman numeral for 10 because it's outside of group 1 and group 2, and it's not cadmium, zinc, aluminum, or what did I leave off? Silver. The oxygen part is easy. That's oxide. Over here on the side, I'm going to show you how we change this. You start with the negative thing. I have 2 oxygens. It's SNO2. I have 2 oxygens. Each oxygen from the periodic table is -2. 2 times -2 is -4. So if the oxygen side is -4, the tin side has to be +4 to add it to 0. So then you start with your total positive charge, +4, and you divide it by how many tins there are. If there's no subscript, how many tins are there? Just 1. And 4 divided by 1 is 4. So how do we write 4 as a Roman numeral? What's my missing piece in here? IV. This way of doing it never fails. Reverse crossing works as long as the things were not reduced to begin with, which is why I'm teaching it to you this way, because this way doesn't ever give you problems. Calcium is a group 2 metal, so there's no Roman numeral. What is OH? Capital O, capital H. It's one of these. You use it all the time when we get into acids and bases. One of the only ones that does not end in "ite" or "ate, this is called hydroxide. One of the few that ends in "ide." Hydroxide and cyanide are the only 2 polyatomic ions that do that. Hey, this one's different. That is uranium. Uranium is an intertransition metal, so it's going to need a Roman numeral. The chlorine will become chloride, and I'm going to work backwards, just like I did on number 28. So I know chlorine, there are 3 of them, Each chlorine has a -1 charge. 3 times -1 is -3. So that means that my uranium has to be opposite that, but I have one of them, and so it has to carry the whole +3 charge, and the Roman numeral for 3 is I. Move that down some. The next one, potassium is a group 1 metal. Don't do anything to it. Cl is chlorine. Chlorine becomes chloride. Lead is outside of group 1 and 2, and it's not one of those 4 that don't need it. I'm going to do the same thing I did above. I'm going to work backwards. NO3 is nitrate. So you would look up nitrate. There's 2 of them. Each one of them has a -1 charge for a total of -2. Make this guy little. Like I said, I'm not trying to go too fast. I swear I'm not. If you need to, once you have this filled out, go back and listen to what I'm about to upload into Canvas, because that helps you when you already have stuff written, then do it. I just hope something weird doesn't happen to my recording. So that means that my lead side has to be an opposite charge, which is +2. I have one of them, and so it must carry the full +2 charge. And the way that we say 2 in Roman is II. I'm planning on letting you use it on the test. So, I mean, inadvertently, it should help you. So normally if I just walk you through something, I don't take a grade for it, because that's like sort of defeats the purpose. All right, now we're going to do molecular. These are easier. You got to do, so if you see, let me make it just a little bit bigger. If you see a subscript, you have to say that first. Okay, the first element only gets a prefix if it has a subscript. This one does. How do we say 5? Penta. And then you do not change the name of that first element, which is selenium. The second element will always get a prefix. And 9 is nana. Okay, now I'm gonna get rid of a letter here in a second. So those of you who don't like to scratch out, hold on. If the oxygen is going to change to oxide, but when you have only with oxygen, if it ends, the prefix ends in an A or an O, get rid of it. You do not do that with an I. So it is still trioxide and dioxide, but it's not monooxide, it's monoxide. The oxygen is the only element that does it. SF6, there is no subscript, so it does not get a prefix. That is just sulfur. Can't spell. 6 is hexa, and then fluorine is fluoride. It's like a cat hair in my mask or something. It was driving me. Okay. That's what I get for having a cat that has to put his stink on everything. All right, not that he stinks. Just the way cats are. You have to say 2, which is di. You do not change the chlorine for the first element. Now, if it was the second element, you would. But the first element doesn't, is that spelled right? Yes. The first element does not get an ending change. 7 is hepta, and then oxygen becomes oxide. Oh, I do. Heptoxide. Yes, I do. Come on, computer. Stop being silly. There we go. We have to say 3, which is tri. You do not change sulfur. I can't type today, y'all. And then I have to say 8, which is octa. You do not have to drop the A on this one because that's chlorine. And you change the ending to I. I'm forgetting to scroll this down. Oxygen does not get a prefix. There's no subscript. Di is how we say 2. fluorine, because not flour, fluoride. Okay, this one, you're still going to say the prefix first, so disulfur. And then 4 is tetra, so tetroxide. Oh, we're good on time. I should be able to upload this. Let me make this a little bit smaller so I can get rid of all of my, get rid of these. Do what now? Yeah, I could have done that. You're right. Let's enter this again. That's too big. When do we use Roman numerals? What's the only reason why we would use a Roman numeral when we have a specific type of metal? What type of metal needs to have a Roman numeral? Okay, anything, so all metals to the right of group 1A and 2A, except EXCEPT, there we go, for aluminum, which is always +3, cadmium, which is always +2, zinc, which is always +2, and silver, which is always +1. You guys should have in their blocks, you should have these listed. So what do they mean? What does a Roman numeral mean for that metal? If it's V, what does that mean? But what, 5 what? That's how positive it is. So what do they stand for? It is how positive, not how many, how positive of a charge that metal has. If it's II, it's +2. If it's IV, it's +4. If it's VII, it's +7. Do you use them in ionic or molecular naming? Only in ionics. Let's say compounds, that'll work. And then list all 10 Roman numerals. Okay, so in order from 1 to 10, it goes I, IV, V, VI, VII, VIII, IX, and then X. Really? I've never seen anything above VII, ever. I'm sure something does exist, but I've never seen it. Normally, in chemistry, we don't go past 4. I'm not saying that you will never see it, because we have. Normally it's +1 through +4. But there are some that have more than that. All right, so did I answer all of the questions on that? Yes. When would you use prefixes? This is only in molecular, which if I say covalent, it's the same thing. Compounds. Those two words are totally interchangeable with each other. What do they stand for? What does the prefix tell you for that element? It's how many, right? Not its charge. It tells how many of that atom are needed, which is what we call a subscript. List all 10 prefixes. Okay, so from 1 to 10 in order. It's mono, di, tri, tetra, penta, hexa. I don't think I'm messing anything up. Hepta, octa, nona, and deca. Okay, now, I know some of you are still writing this. I do need to go back and double check online. Let me get it off of this. Roll that up just a little bit. I know my head is in your way. I'm sorry, when I'm stuck behind my computer. That's all I can do. Now, I am going to open this up in Canvas in just a bit. I will stop my record. I'll tell you what, let me freeze the screen, and then I'm going to Hold on just a second online. That's going to come back in just a second. Copy of Unit 5 test review, share. Okay, now they have that back. Now I need to double check online. Let me turn the light on. I'm staring at the screen in the dark. I think everybody has everything turned in. Really, the only thing that we have left is your notebook. Which if you guys want to get a jump start on that, fine. I did have at least one person already turn it in, which is lovely. I can't give you a full period. Oh, there's something in the chat window. No, Nathaniel. I think I probably already answered your question. Okay, I don't see anybody else new. Let me activate this. And let me stop the recording. I'm glad they fixed that with Google Meet.